Hello, good people of the vinyl community. Midge here again, a guy in a hat who likes to talk about records. And yeah, I know, I'm sorry, it's my turn now. This is my Boys of Dungeon Lane video. Everyone's got to do one, haven't they, on YouTube, to be honest. But in my defence, I always buy McCartney's albums for good or bad. So I'm not just bought it just to do a review. I wouldn't put you through that. But yeah, and at first I wasn't going to do this. I didn't really want to add to the sort of YouTube landfill of Dungeon Lane videos. But then I thought, I'm only going to talk about it in my roundup of new releases. So in order to make that video a lot shorter, it's probably better if I do a standalone one like I did with the Boards of Canada album. Both released in the same week, both huge releases, both a really big deal in my sort of musical sphere. So I did one for Boards, so I suppose it's only fair that I do one for Dungeon Lane. And I've had time to think about it and listen to it a lot and make an opinion based on it. And I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and reviews on it, and the overwhelming opinion seems to be that it's a really good album. Some people are calling it a masterpiece. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I'll let you know what I think about it at the end of this video. That keeps you watching to the end. That's a tip I've learned, okay? So I could tell you now, but you just cut off, wouldn't you? And a lot of people cut off after a minute anyway. So yeah, just keep watching, keep watching. So basically, this is McCartney's first album in about 6 years. His first since McCartney 3, which I also enjoyed, to be honest. I mean, I was thinking the other day about McCartney's recent run of albums, and they've mostly been quite good, in my opinion. I really like Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. I liked McCartney 3, to be honest, although I don't think it was as experimental as I'd hoped it would have been, but I still enjoyed it. I liked Memory Almost Full as well. The only one that I thought was a bit iffy was Egypt Station. I thought that was a bit bland, but I think the thing with McCartney is when he tends to make albums with his touring band, not just now, but in the touring bands he's had in the past as well, they don't seem to push him that much. It seems to be quite bland, and I thought Egypt Station was one of those. And Dungeon Lane is obviously produced by he's sort of like the latest legacy producer, isn't he? He made the Rolling Stones' last album, Hackney Diamonds, which I also really enjoyed, to be honest. And he's also doing the new one that's coming up. But yeah, Paul's been working with Andrew Watt, and I think when Paul works with a sort of like a name producer, I think he tends to be more focused, and I think they tend to push him a bit more, so the material's a bit more focused. So and that is the case on this album, to be honest. Also, everyone's been mentioning the fact that Macca's he's 83 or is he 84 this year, and age comes into this a lot. So age will be mentioned, and quite rightly so. I think it is a big factor in this album. And he's done one of the biggest promotional campaigns I've ever known him do for this. So he's obviously very, very proud of this album. And I've got a few thoughts on that coming up, but he does seem to have really pushed this. He's been on YouTube channels. He's done Saturday Night Live. He's done no end of interviews, podcasts. He's really, really gone for it this time. And I don't think it's because he feels like he's got something to prove. I mean, it's always probably nice to have another #1 album, which he did manage. But the promotional campaign for this has been incredible. It's just been absolutely full on. And obviously it's based around nostalgia. But what I was pleased about with this album was it's not totally focused around nostalgia. The first 2 tracks were obviously very nostalgia driven. And I'm glad the whole album wasn't like a concept album of that. It does play on it heavily, but there are other tracks that don't, dwell on that sort of aspect of it. The other thing probably to mention before we start the review is that obviously you can't deny it really, but Paul's vocals are shot. So I blame it, the extensive touring he does on that. But his vocals they do and they don't, I suppose. He sounds different to me on every track. Obviously there's some studio trickery on there. Also it depends on what kind of material he's singing. There's always been a lot put into his vocal production, but you don't tend to notice it unless you really look out for it. Some tracks you feel like he's struggling a little bit, but it doesn't detract from the song or the overall sound of the album. And he does some of the rockers on here. He sounds actually better doing the rockers than he does on the ballads. And it's, you know, his voice, he still does a lot of screaming on this album. And also, he doesn't really shy away from it. A lot of the tracks on here are really stripped back, and there's nowhere to hide for his vocal. And yet he still, you know, he still produces a good job. And he does a lot of vocals on this album, which surprised me. It's sort of like the backing vocals are very prominent, and just a lot of different varying types of vocals. So to say that his voice isn't what it used to be, and it's not going to be, is it? But he does a really good job on this album, and his, you know, his vocal deficiencies, which people pick up on quite a lot, don't detract from the album at all. Another thing to mention about this album, as you're probably sick of seeing, is in a way with the campaign tie-in, is done 14, I think it's more like 16 now, vinyl variants, which is ridiculous really, but you know, each to their own. I've only gone for one, and I think Alex at Beer and Vinyl picked up on this. I mean, a lot of the variants are just different coloured vinyl, and you think it's not particularly pushing the boat out really, is it? It's just you can get a red one, a yellow one, a green one, a blue one. I think there is a picture disc one, but it's not exactly, you know, it's McCartney, for fuck's sake, you know, push the boat out a little bit, you know, go that extra mile. So I wasn't sure which variant to go for, and let's be honest, they're all expensive. Another thing that, you know, that you have to put up with legacy acts, the vinyl versions of their albums. Neil Young's the worst for it, but they're always really expensive. So in the end, the one I went for was the one I thought that, you know, they put a little bit of effort into it, and it's the Blood Records variant. So that was a limited run of 4,000. I got 276, quite a low number. But yeah, I went for this specifically because, you know, I felt that they put the effort into it that Macca deserves, and this was the only splatter version I know of, and I think that's fantastic. That's what you should do with the coloured McCartney variant. You should make it splatter, because splatter is the best vinyl colour in my opinion. So that's the Ripples in a Pond splatter from Blood Records. So really pleased to pick that up. It was the only one I thought that looked quite special. And I know you've seen this loads of times, but obviously you've got the inner sleeve, which has loads of photos of the Beatles and Macca's family from his archives. You've got the lyric booklet where you have to sort of decipher all Paul's handwritten scroll. Although I was disappointed there wasn't any sort of credits on here for who plays on what. And I know specifically Andrew Watt insisted that Paul plays as many of the instruments as possible. So it is just Paul and Andrew, but it would have been nice to see the breakdown. I know you can look it up online, but I can't be bothered. So this one also came with a poster of a very young Paul posing somewhere on a mountain. It also came with a Dungeon Lane sticker, which is nice. I love promotional stuff. And a postcard of the poster with some lyrics from the boys of Dungeon Lane and the birds, which are all hidden in the album artwork because Paul was a keen bird watcher. And oh yeah, and I also got the tote bag. Obviously, I've done a thorough review of this tote bag in my other video, so if you've missed it, go and have a look at it. So I've reviewed the tote bag already. It got a solid 8 out of 10. Some people criticise and saying it should have been higher, but I stand by that review, to be honest, because I've tried carrying vinyl in it, and yeah, it works, but I've not tried veg or groceries or anything like that. So I withhold, you know, the full judgment until I've done that. But 8 out of 10 is, you know, I think that's fine for now. So that aside, you've seen the vinyl, blah, 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 blah. You've seen it all before. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through of the track listing and tell you what I think of each song. Okay, so I'm going to go through the album track by track. I'll be quick, honest, and I'll just give you a few thoughts on each track as we go along. So the first track is As You Lie There, another track that a lot of people have picked up on. It is a highlight of the album, because not only does it start with a spoken word passage, which took me a bit of getting used to be honest, but not because of the spoken word, but because I think the intonation's a bit up and down. But it's a great track. It reminds me a lot of 10cc. It's a sort of track that 10cc would construct, as it's a bit of a story song. It has different passages. And the guitar solo especially, and it really sounds like a 10cc guitar solo, but that's just my interpretation of it. It's a song about Paul's first crush, and he does a lot of like raucous screaming type rocky vocals on it, and it works really well. So that's the first highlight, so you can understand why it's been put at the start of the track listing, start of the album. Next up, you got Lost Horizons. I like this song again. It's one of those songs. It's quite up tempo. It's a good rocker, and it's like the subject is interesting as well. It's sort of like he's talking about how things like a bus coming to a standstill and various different sounds that you hear throughout your life trigger certain memories. So it's a bit of a nostalgia piece, but it's quite clever. The lyrically, it's quite clever in terms of that thing of just a simple sound can trigger memories. And it also has one of the themes of the album in a way, and it says live for now in it, so it's a case of enjoying the moment and what you've got left. And again, it's something we can all relate to. Okay, the next track is one of the big ones, so it's The Days We Left Behind. It was the first trailer single for the album, and it's what the marketing campaign has hung a lot of the promotion for this album on, as in it's nostalgia, it's Paul looking back. And it's a beautiful song. It's really simple, acoustic guitar and piano, and Paul's vocal sounds very sort of cracked and a bit broken on it. And I think this is one of the tracks where the vocals really suit the material and the lyrics. So obviously it's Paul looking back, and he's talking about memories in the past and the fact that time doesn't stand still. Nothing stays the same. Time's always moving, and your memories of what you got left. And memories are important because no one can take them away from you. You've done that, and especially in his life, you've been there and you've done it, and no one can take that away from you. And it's a really beautiful sort of song that tugs at your heartstrings. I love this song. Such a beautiful ballad. It conveys so much emotion, and if you think about it, I don't want to build it up too much, but there's a lyric in the song that says, obviously he's talking about his humble beginnings and they didn't have a lot and things like that. And they were saying the boys of Dungeon Lane, which was like a lane at the back of where Paul lived, and it was like fields, and he used to go bird watching there and things like that. And he was talking about a lot of the boys of his generation had nothing. Some would feel the pain, but some were meant for more. And it's sort of like you can understand how somebody, how people sort of think of the Beatles it's almost like a religious story. I mean, forget religion. I mean, this is the greatest story ever told in some ways. Well, it is for me anyway, because, from such humble beginnings, these four lads just changed the face of music forever. They changed society. They had a hand in that, and what they've lived through, only those four people will ever know. And it's such a big story, and you can't help but think that Paul's, in a way, he's referring to that. He's saying, how did this happen? How did we go through all this from such humble beginnings? And I think it must be mind blowing to him and the others. The surviving ones anyway, when they think about what they've been through, it must be a mind blower. And I think this song captures that as well. It's just, some were meant for more, and obviously he's referring to him and the other Beatles. It's just, it's an amazing song. And to be honest with you, when I first heard it, I didn't think that much of it, but it's really, really grown on me, and it's a real highlight of the album. It's a great McCartney ballad, and also I think it's important because it references John and the bond that he had with John Lennon as well. So I think that's significant on the album as well, to be honest. Next one, another favourite. I mean, it's got a high hit rate so far. Ripples in a Pond. That's a great song as well. Another sort of up tempo type track. Obviously, it's about him. I presume I know he's done talks on the songs, but I haven't watched them all. But I'm presuming it's like a love song for Nancy, his current wife. And it's just a really sort of optimistic, happy sort of up tempo track. Let's carry on making ripples in a pond. It's really catchy. I really like that song, to be honest. It's one of my favourite songs on the album. Then we've got Mountain Top. This was one that I really didn't like at first, but as I listened to it more and more, I've really enjoyed it. And I think what I didn't like about it is, first, it's obviously Paul doing a psychedelic song, and I thought it was really, really cringe when I first heard it. I just thought the lyrics were quite cringy and the psychedelic effects, but over repeated plays, I've really been enjoying it. It's been a real grower. I mean, the lyrics are a little bit cheesy when he talks about magic mushrooms and stuff, and there's a lot of psychedelic effects on the track as well, and it speeds up towards the end and then slows down again. But it's really grown on me, to be honest. It's a great tune. It's a great sort of daft, sort of psychedelic type track. But yeah, I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Down South again. Another stripped back song, just Paul and an acoustic guitar for the most part, and he's talking about a hitchhiking trip he did with George Harrison when they were just young kids, going down south, picked up by a lorry driver, and how he got to know George through that trip. And like a boyhood memory again. And, again, the vocals got nowhere to hide. It is quite stark, but I wouldn't say it was the best track on the album, but again, it's sort of like it's a great reminiscence type song. So again, it ties into that nostalgia. Only a short song, but obviously, again, he's referenced John, now he's referencing George. And the last track on the album, on the side one, sorry, We Too is my least favourite track on the album. I just, there's nothing to it. It's just like a simple little love song, but I don't really feel like it goes anywhere, and the melody's not particularly strong, and it doesn't stand out for me. So the last track on side one does let it down slightly, but yeah, not a favourite. I think that is the weakest track on the album. Okay, so on to side two. Side two starts with Come Inside, another up-tempo rocker, another one where Paul lets rip on his vocals and is quite shouty at times. Again, really like it, really catchy, really upbeat. Great way of starting the album off on side two. The next track is Never Know, and another great song. Again, going back to the vocal things, is there's a breakdown in the middle of this song where Paul does sort of like almost like barbershop vocals and melodies. We're sort of like using his vocals like bum 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 bum, and it layers on top of each other, and it sounds really cool. So he's not shying away from using his vocals for lots of things on the album. Like I say, I think there's a lot put into the backing vocals on this album. They're quite prominent, and it's got like a recorder solo in the middle of it too, which sounds really cool. It sounds quite psyche as well, so there's a bit of a psych element to that track as well. And it's got a great guitar solo as well in it. So yeah, another great track. Next up, the second single, Home to Us. And I love this song. It's really bouncy, it's really catchy, it's really infectious, it's classic McCartney, and it's so great to hear Ringo, him trading vocals with Ringo. It's like a proper duet. Paul does one line, then Ringo does one line. And yeah, it always puts a big smile on my face when I hear it. And not only that, it's also because it's almost like the Paul McCartney's version of the Four Yorkshiremen sketch by Monty Python. I mean, I don't know if you know that sketch, but the song's about their humble beginnings again, and the fact that they didn't have very much, but they were happy for what they've got. And it just reminds me of the Four Yorkshiremen sketch. It's sort of like Paul will go, "We used to live in a hole in the ground, covered by a couple of sheets of tarpaulin, but it was home to us." And then you'll get Ringo jumping in, going, "Well, you were lucky to have a hole. We used to have 28 of us living in a shoebox here on the motorway, but it was home to us." It's almost like they're trying to outdo each other.
And you try and tell the young people of today that, and they won't believe you. No, they won't.
And yeah, I love it for that. I love it for the sort of the Python-esque type quality of it. Life Can Be Hard is next, another favourite on the album. It's got sort of like a classic Macca sort of 1930s jazz band arrangement, and the melody on it's just superb. I think it was written during COVID initially, about, how they struggled in terms of, they couldn't do what they want anymore and things like that. I could be wrong, but it's got such a gorgeous melody, and it sort of bounces along on the piano arrangement, and there's lots of like horns and stuff on it, and it's like a jazz band arrangement, the sort of thing that McCartney's loves to do and has done so well over the years. So that I really like that track, really catchy. First Star of the Night, again, another highlight. Absolutely beautiful song. Again, it's like classic McCartney optimism. It's sort of like the world's falling apart. There's really bad things happening in the world. But when he sees the first star of the night, he says, I know my little world will be all right. And it's sort of like that comfort in the now and the everyday things around you that will hopefully always be there. And it's a beautiful song, really nice arrangement. And I love the idea behind the lyrics. It's just Macca all over, just upbeat and optimistic in the face of everything that's going off around him, and I love it for that. Then we've got Salesman Saint, which again it ties into the nostalgia of the album, and it's like a tribute to his mum and dad. This song. It has sort of like a Mexican horn sounding type arrangement to it as well in the intro and during the song. And like I say, it's a homage to his parents. Um, it's quite touching, but it's not one of my favourites on the album. But obviously, it is like a tribute to his mum and dad about how hard they worked and that he didn't have much, and it was a struggle, but they got by because they had each other. And the last song on the album is another song that gets a lot of plaudits from reviewers. It's not really one of my favourites, to be honest, but I think it is a really important song in terms of where it's placed on the album, and the sort of the lyrics. You can read a few things into it. So Mama Gets By is well, it's like Paul has said, it's a character song, but I think there's more to it than that. I think you could read into it that it's about when the Beatles broke up, and Linda, obviously freshly married to Linda, and Linda did carry him through that period in which he's often said he was very depressed. He didn't know where to go in the future. He thought his career was up, which is unbelievable thinking about it, but that's genuinely how he felt. He used to drink a lot, and I think if you read between the lines, it doesn't all match, but I think he is. It's like a tribute to Linda, and I'd be very surprised if it isn't. But you're not going to put a tribute to your ex-wife on an album, are you? Without and make a big song and dance about it when you're currently married. I mean, you get a bit of grief from your missus for that, wouldn't you? So that might be why he's keeping it under wraps, or I might be totally off track. But I think that's a tribute to Linda. And I think it's the final track for a reason. I think it's quite a big statement. Although as a song, I'm not sure it's one of the strongest songs on the album for me. I know I'll get a bit of grief for that, but it's not, to be honest. But there it is. So that's The Boys of Dungeon Lane. So thanks for listening to the review. What do I think of it? I don't think it's a masterpiece. Some people have been calling it like a late career masterpiece. I don't think you can say that in this early stages. I think it's how it sort of morphs into the rest of the catalogue and how it ages and things like that. But I think it's certainly a really important one. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10, just like the tote bag, really. So, perhaps I had a premonition when I got the tote bag. But it's a really good album. It's probably a better album than you would expect of an 84-year-old man. And I don't mean that condescendingly. I mean, I think there's a lot of clues in this album. I think, although there has been talk of the fact that they recorded nearly another album's worth of tracks, I mean, that's not really unusual for Andrew Watt, because he's done the same with the Stones. He more or less recorded 2 albums at the same time. So I'm not saying there won't be any more material, but I think there is a reason why Paul has put everything into promoting this album. It might be a sign-off. It might be the last album he ever does. I mean, Paul's cycle at the moment seems about every 5 years. He'll be 89 when he does his next album. Is there really going to be a next album? I mean, if he's going to sign off, I think there's plenty of clues in here that suggest, this would he would want this to be his final statement. Not only because it's sort of got like a nostalgic hook to it, but also because it references John, it references George, Ringo's on it. It talks about his mum and dad. I'm sure that last song is a tribute to Linda. He's got love songs for Nancy on here, his current wife. And also, it's got everything from that McCartney's given us. It's like a classic songwriter album. There's optimism, there's his big band arrangements that he loves, there's his ballads, there's his upbeat songs, and his optimism. Everything about McCartney that you love is in this album. And I think it is deliberate. And also, when you think about McCartney looking back and making this album, you think of all the stories he could have drawn on being in the Beatles, the people he met, the things he did. But Paul McCartney has got that classic sort of gift about songwriting, and he knows as a songwriter, it's ingrained in him. You've got to, it's not your experience, you're trying to touch a universal experience. You're trying to draw people in because, yeah, that's happened to me, or I can identify with that. And that is McCartney's gift. It's a classic songwriter gift. He's not talking about himself specifically, he's trying to bring you in with him. Everybody thinks about growing old. Everyone thinks about memories of the past and dwelling on things you did as a kid, or your parents and what they did for you, or your relationships with people, your wives, your husbands, all that sort of thing. Everybody can identify with that. So it's not just Paul saying, well, I was in the Beatles, I met Imelda Marcos once. It's he's drawing on these memories, but he's making it universal so everybody can identify with it. And I think that's one of the triumphs of this album. It's one of the focuses of it, that everyone worries about growing old. Everyone worries about is how much time have we got left, and he references living in the now on here. And I'm not sure it's explicit, I'm not sure even that's how he's thinking, but I definitely think there's something behind this in terms of, if this is my last statement, then I'm very happy with bowing out on this. It references all his past and his family and his friends, and everything is in here. So it is sort of like an audio memoir, if you like. So yeah, it's brilliant. I really enjoyed this. Masterpiece now. Really solid, enjoyable album from one of the greatest singer-songwriters, definitely. So I'd highly recommend it. Yeah, there are a few duffers on here or tracks that don't live up to it, but it's a McCartney album. But it is one of his strongest in recent years, I think. It's better than McCartney 3, and I didn't think it would be. So, yeah, that's Paul McCartney. That's my Dungeon Lane review. So we can all go back to normal now, and but make sure you do yours. Make sure, I've done it. Everyone's got to do one. So, it's like a vinyl tag. So you've all got to do one, okay? So thanks for watching and listening to my witterings and The Boys of Dungeon Lane by Paul McCartney. Available in all good record shops and bad ones. Okay? See you later. Thanks for watching.